Moms who know do less so they can focus on what matters most, taking care of themselves, their families, and living their God-given purpose. Moms who know focus on the little things they can do that grow to have a huge impact. You are connecting with your family, your true self, and your God-given purpose. You are a mom who knows. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and I'm joined today by Jenna Kim Jones. Jenna, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here. So happy. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm so happy to have you. I was telling you before the call, this has been the most fun episode to do my homework for and do my research for because it involved lots of laughing. It involved lots of TV watching. It was just fun to go and see all the things that you've done. So you guys might know Jenna from her, she is on Random Acts, which is a show that we love around here. We watch it on BYU TV. I'm sure you can get it in other places. Super cute, where they go out and just do random acts of kindness for people. She has a podcast that she hosts with her husband called Couple Friends. She is a comedian and her stuff is just so good and so relatable to moms. She's done many other things, hosted, do you say hosted Meet the Mormons? You were the host of Meet the Mormons. All right, we'll say
Narrator, host.
Narrator. There we go. Yeah. So you guys have probably seen her before. And if not, this will be a great introduction because so much fun. So many big things that she's been involved with. So to start off, I would love to know just a little bit more about your career, but also about your personal life and your family and just a little more about you.
Sure. So I grew up, it's always complicated because I've moved a lot. I don't feel like I know exactly where I'm from, but I lived in Korea till I was 8, Utah till I was 18. I lived in New York City till I was 26, and then Los Angeles until about 2 years ago. Now I live in Atlanta. So people always ask me, where's your accent from? And I'm like, I don't know. It's all over the place. Sometimes I sound Midwestern. Sometimes I sound a little Southern. Sometimes I sound like I'm from the West. I don't know. So I've lived in lots of cool places, and I am a stand-up comedian. That's what I started doing, and then got involved in all kinds of things like podcasting, which I absolutely love. I met my husband in 2011. And we got married in 2012. So we've been married for about 7 years. And we have 2 children. I have an almost 4-year-old. She'll be 4 in about a month. And a 2-year-old. And they are so much fun and so great and such a great mind for material. It's fabulous. And also I love being a mother. And motherhood is its own comedy routine at times. And it is just... It's a fun life right now that I feel like I'm blessed to live. I get to do stand-up. I get to do podcasting. I get to host TV, but I also get to stay at home with my kids a lot of the time, most of the time. And so it's been quite a journey. Motherhood really kicked me in the behind in the beginning. I couldn't believe how hard it was. I knew people told me it was hard. But it was such an adjustment and really fun and exciting. But anyway, so that's a little bit about me. I love living in Atlanta. I do love being a mom, but I also really love working. I think it is nice. It's been helpful for me and fulfilling to have a little of both in my life right now. Mm-hmm.
I totally relate to that. I feel like I am a stay-at-home mom. And then I have this podcast too that I fit in the cracks, during preschool, during nap time and all those things. But it keeps me sane. I'm not going to say sane, but saner than I would be if I didn't have it, Not quite all the way sane either way, but yeah. Anyway, so so many things that you have been involved in. I really, as I was looking through and just getting into your material, my big question was, how do you balance all of the different projects that you've done in addition to motherhood and being a wife?
Very delicately. I think the balancing act is tough. I've had to make lots of sacrifices. And I think that is something that I try to communicate a lot to people who ask me, like, how do you do it all? And I say, I don't do it all. And I think that's the reality. As a stand-up comedian, my true desire as a stand-up is to be gone all the time performing. But when I got married, I couldn't go out quite as much because I also wanted to be home with my husband because I had fallen in love and I really wanted to be around this person for the first time, and then when I had kids, it was even harder to say, oh, I'm going to be gone all weekend to go do stand-up because I would desperately missed my children and realized that I was, I couldn't bounce at all. So I've slowed down on stand-ups and I only can go, once a month, twice a month here and there. But I still do it and I still write all the time and try to perform when I absolutely can and take opportunities that come my way. But I also have found that podcasting has really filled a lot of that need to perform because I can do it at home when they're sleeping. I can podcast anytime. And I feel like I'm staying in touch with the people who have followed my career. I'm meeting new people. I'm being creative. Because so much of my drive is just, I do have this strong desire to be a creative person. And you can be creative as a mother, but I'm not that good at that creative mother stuff. So I love being a mom, but I also need an outlet. And I found that podcasting provides that for me. So I think the trick with balancing is realizing fitting in what you can do and letting go of the rest, which can sound kind of like a downer, but honestly, my life feels extremely fulfilled because I get to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, well, it sounds really fulfilling because what I hear you saying is you're being really intentional. You're like, oh, I really want to go do this stand-up. I really love doing this. But you know what I love even more? Mm-hmm. My family. Mm-hmm. And so they're first and then stand-up comes after. And I love that you've found an outlet. And I think that there's something there, you guys, that's so powerful because maybe you can't go be an Olympic gymnast because you have kids and you can't go do that right now. Like it's not your time anymore, but you can teach your kids gymnastics or whatever the case may be. Like you take those skills, you take those talents, you take those innate drives and you make it work in a different way. Mm-hmm. So that you can balance your family. And I think that's one of the huge keys to balance. And we don't always hear that, I feel like, because it's like, no, you can have it all. You can do it all. Right. Go out and do your stand up and your kids sing them when you can, Right.
It's just, I would be letting go of a part of my life that has become so important to me. And I'm not willing to, at this phase of life, to do that. They're so little and they're so funny and they're growing constantly. Even when I do have to leave, for 2-3 days, I come home and I think, my goodness, you look different. What happened?
Yeah.
It just happens so fast. So I do think at some point I'll try to go out and do a little more stand-up, later in life. But the nice thing about being a stand-up comedian is you can be any age. It's a very diverse world, and I'll always be able to write material and I'll always be able to perform. And I'm grateful for that. It's a perk of the job, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So true. Something I never thought of. Yeah. Like with my earlier example of gymnastics, like, well, you're going to phase out of that, but,
right.
But you can do this. Yeah. You can do comedy forever. And you probably just get funnier as you go.
That's what, I'm telling you, kids have forced me to be funnier because my goodness, it's a zoo. It's chaos.
Yeah.
And there are times when I think you kind of want to cry maybe, but then when you look back on it, it's like, for example, let me give you a specific example. There was a day I was really stressed out. I had 2 little ones. I don't think Dylan, my little 2-year-old, I don't think she was walking quite yet, but she was moving. And I went out on the deck because they'd left a bunch of toys on the deck. So I'm out on the deck and I turn around and Samantha, my older one, had shut the door and locked it. And then she was looking at me through the window and knocking on the window like, hi, Mom, ha, 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 ha. She came over and she unlocked it. But at that point, Dylan had already put her body up against the door. So I couldn't really open it because Dylan was sitting in the way and she wouldn't move and nobody was listening to me and they all thought it was funny. And I remember I was holding a bottle of bubbles. because that's what they had left out, and I was bringing them in, and I had bent over as I was opening the door. I had bent over to kind of move Dylan and open the door, and the bubbles spilled out all over the floor in my living room. And I was like, what is happening? And then Sam came over and I said, don't come over here. It's bubbles. And she stepped in it and slipped on, she fell and everybody was crying and it was chaos. And then that night I'm telling my husband about it and he was like, Jenna, this is comedy. He's like, this is a scene in a show. Yeah, I'm like, oh, you're right.
Totally.
This is a scene in a show. It's mass chaos all the time. And so I've learned that truly in those moments, even when I'm frustrated, even when I can't believe it's happening to me like this, it truly is hilarious. I mean, it really is.
Yes. If you can get the perspective to laugh at it, if you can get that, then yes. I mean, so much of it. And it's so easy to miss that in the frustration of bubbles on the floor and a mess to clean up and a baby on the other side that, and just like, you know, so much concern in the moment. But yeah, if you can laugh at it and recognize that, how fun and what a great memory. And we're all going to laugh at this someday. And why not start now?
Exactly.
Right?
And that's kind of what my husband woke me up to that of like, I don't know, that sounds like a pretty hilarious scene in a show that I'd watch. And I'm like, oh, you're right. That was so crazy. So I've thought about that a lot and thought about that in those moments of like, oh my goodness, there's poop, there's this, there's who knows what else is happening. And I've been grateful for that perspective that he kind of shook into me like, hey, this is material. This is a funny moment. This is something we're all going to laugh about later when I finally write that book about whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome too, as a comedian, that you can be like, hey, this is material. Like I am, what a great, you know, learning experience to have this. So as a comedian, then you're using material from your life. I was thinking of, you know, that scene in Finding Nemo where they meet Marlin and they're like, hey, you're a clownfish. You're funny.
Yes.
Do you ever feel like that? Do you get that? Like, hey, you're a comedian. Tell us something funny. Tell us a joke.
All the time. It's like random people, I'll say, oh, I'm a comedian. Oh my gosh, tell us a joke. And I like it. It happens to every comedian, every comedian you'll ever meet. It happens to them constantly. And the hard part is it's never going to be funny in that exact moment because I'm going to tell you a joke. Your expectations are so high that I'm going to fail you. And then it's going to just be, oh, she's not that funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I can totally see that because what could you honestly say in that situation that would just be so funny?
Nothing. I've tried things and it always is just, oh boy, this is trouble. So I always just tell people, well, what do you do for a living? And then I'll ask them to do something for me too. You know, oh, you're an accountant. Well, let's do some numbers, shall we? Or, you know, or I'll just say like, I'm not that funny today. Go to my website. You'll find funny there. I don't know.
That's awesome. I think that would be one major problem with being a comedian. Just something that, like you said, would come up all the time and be kind of hard. Yeah.
It is. It's so awkward because you want to impress and you want to be the funny person that you claim to be. But in those moments, typically you're just not. You can't be, you know?
So I've heard with some comedians that they are a lot more funny, like on stage with prepared material than in real life. Would you say that's true for you, or you're kind of the laughing as you go kind of person?
Oh, no. I think I'm significantly funnier on stage prepared. It's actually one of the things that attracted me to stand-up comedy. I had never even thought of it as an option for me as a career. And I remember the day that it was like, oh, this actually might be something I like or want to do. And I realized one of the reasons that I was attracted to it was that I was in control of the moment. As a comedian, you spend time crafting these jokes and writing these jokes and practicing them. And then when you go on stage, that moment is yours and you're fully in control of the situation. And you kind of get to tell the audience like, hey, this is funny and you're going to laugh at it. I mean, you don't say that, but the way you present your jokes is sort of taking command of the stage and going like, I hope you guys are ready to laugh because this is going to make you laugh. And I realized that that's something that I really enjoyed about the stand-up process because I have sort of like an architecture kind of brain where I like to build. I like to put pieces together and build something. And that's what stand-up is for me. Like I take all these things that I've written and I piece it together and build a structure. And it fits just my brain, my personality. And so I would say, yes, I am much funnier when I am in the moment on stage performing. But I think a lot of people don't realize that most stand-up comedians spend hours and hours writing that joke that feels natural and feels in the moment. Most stand-up is very, very prepared, very, very like down to the specific words that comedians are using. There really isn't a lot of improv, except for when you go off script to maybe make a joke to the audience or talk about the crowd or do some kind of crowd work. Most of it is so intensely scripted.
Yeah, that's so cool. There's just such an art to it. And I think that's cool because it shows what goes into it and what goes behind the scenes. And it's not just like, oh, I'm naturally funny, I can get up on stage and be funny. It's this art of putting it together. And I think that's so cool. And it's also hopeful for those of us who don't feel that funny, like, oh, you could work at it. Like it's a skill that you could learn. And
it's funny. There's the natural, you have to have some natural charisma on stage. So you need to have stage presence, which helps a lot. I mean, some comedians don't, and they just work towards that, but it helps if you've performed before or you feel comfortable on a stage, which growing up, I did a lot of different performing and singing. So I had that part down. The part that I had to find when I became a stand-up is, what is your funny? What is funny to you? What are you going to share with the audience and give of yourself that is funny? So that's the part that I really had to find and explore when I first started doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed in your comedy is you do a lot of, I don't want to say making fun of yourself, but self-deprecating humor, I think would be fair to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think that has really served you well. I mean, people really feel like, oh, she gets me. She's not this, person who just can slip on her skinny jeans easily, for example. She has to work into those things. I enjoyed that part because I feel you on that. Those are
I know they're so tight. We wear them so tight.
Yes.
No. I found that I want to be someone who's relatable because I just feel like we're all so much the same. I just feel like we're all getting through life. We all have so much in common. I have a pet peeve. Like, I hope nobody ever thinks that I think I'm better than somebody else. Or I just think we have so much in common. I'm not expressing myself well at all right now, but I'm grateful that came across to you. I love making fun of myself. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. I think we are all in this together. And if we could just understand that, we'd all get along so much better too.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that is definitely coming across loud and clear. So tell us a little bit more. Let's shift gears here. We've talked a lot about comedy. I want to talk a little bit more about your motherhood journey. And you are right in the trenches. I feel like when the kids are little, you don't have them in school yet. It's awesome and it is intense. Yeah. It is so intense. So tell us about some of the challenges that you have faced and are facing in early motherhood.
Well, what's funny is I was never someone who had that sort of baby hunger. I had lots of friends who just, I just love babies and I love to hold them and smell their heads and snuggle them. And I was never someone who felt that naturally necessarily. I was very hesitant to have children. My husband was very excited to have kids. And so that was something we talked about in our marriage. Like, I said to him when we got married, like, just give me a few years of us being together and enjoying ourselves and our marriage. And then let's talk about kids. And he did. I mean, it was January of 3 years after we got married where he was like, all right, I gave you a few years. Let's talk about kids. And turns out we were pretty fertile and we got pregnant about a month later. And I was scared. I was so nervous. I was so nervous to have a baby. I was so nervous to hold a baby. I felt so inexperienced. I remember coming home and being like, can you even put the baby down? Where do you put the baby down? Is it okay to set the baby down? I mean, my husband and I both, we were so naive and didn't have experience. And so our first Samantha, she was a challenge just in the having a baby. And then she also was a challenge. And I didn't realize that. I just thought all babies were extremely difficult. But after about a year, Samantha, she cried and cried and cried all the time, and breastfeeding wasn't working. And we had to find a new formula that would make her not be sick all the time. And then she threw up all the time. And I mean, she just threw up all the time. She couldn't gain weight. She was a tiny little baby. And after she cooled out and we figured out a routine and she got older and bigger and stronger, both my mother-in-law and my mother came to me and said, like, she was a hard baby. We want you to know, like, we didn't want to tell you when you were in it, but she was a really hard baby. So I think it was sort of this double whammy of like, oh boy, I didn't know it was going to be so difficult. And then we had a second child pretty quickly, Dylan, less than 2 years later. And she was a breeze compared to Samantha. Boy, she slept a lot better. She never threw up her food, and she was a lot easier. And so it was interesting to have those two babies back to back so quickly and to see like our growth. And clearly motherhood meant a lot to us, and parenthood, my husband was in it with me. Parenthood meant a lot to us because we had a baby so quick after Sam being so crazy and difficult. And it was just, I don't think you can really warn a new mom or dad about how hard it is until they're in it. Cause I know a lot of people told me like, yeah, it's a challenge. It's tough stuff, but I wasn't really listening. Then when I was in it, I'm like, hey, how come no one told me this was so hard? And my siblings and my mom were like, we told you it was hard.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the initial shock of it all was extremely difficult transition. But now I do feel like, wow, I really love it. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for these little babies we have. They are the best. They're so funny and weird and quirky and cute. And I'm grateful to have that now because boy, it was a wake up call when we brought them home from the hospital.
Yeah, I totally get that. I've never been a person who was baby hungry in that way. I love kids, but the baby part, I was always like, oh, could I just skip that? Can we go ahead? Oh, 3. Oh my gosh. I think 3 is just the best. Even with the tantrums and whatever, 3 and 4, so much fun. But yeah, babies can be a little hard. And I know some people are like, oh, they'd have babies all day long. Yeah. Just love to have those little ones. So yeah, I think different challenges, different ages are challenging for different people.
Oh, agreed.
So yeah. I love it though, that your mom and your mother-in-law didn't tell you till later. Like, actually, she was rough.
She was a tough kid. We just want you to know, not all babies are like that. She was tougher. And I'm like, I just assumed. I mean, she was a tough kid, but she's basically a perfect angel now. So I'm like loving it. She's almost 4. She's so obedient. She's happy, sweet little nugget. And my 2-year-old now, she's a tougher 2-year-old. She's got fire in her and she's a lot of fun, but it's been a different, like I've had to reevaluate all the ways that I parent and discipline because she's just a completely different child than my first.
Yes. And I feel like that happens with every single child that, I have 5 and every time you're like, oh yeah, I got this. I know something. Nope.
I know.
I don't.
It's so amazing how you're like, I got this. And then the technique that you used, not just 1 year ago on one child isn't working anymore on the second one. And it's so interesting.
It is. It's so true. It's crazy. Yeah. Motherhood is the greatest teacher. We learned so many different things. So you've talked about a few of those already, and I really liked your thoughts on kind of balance. Any thoughts for us on mom guilt? And as you're working, you said already, you're working to balance and you're not like going full speed ahead with your career, but does that mom guilt still sneak in for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my kids are just little rascals about it because when I am gone, oh, mom, no, don't leave. don't go anywhere. Are you done working yet? They just milk it for all they can. I think I'm grateful because my husband steps up a lot in those moments where I can't be around and does such a good job helping the girls feel loved and knowing that mom's around and she's going to come back. But mom guilt is interesting. Like I have felt, even now, I struggled with breastfeeding for both of my children, and I still feel guilt over that. And so, I still feel like, oh boy, I didn't breastfeed them as long as maybe I could have gone longer, or maybe, they missed out, or maybe I missed out. And so it's funny how even things that have already gone and passed still haunt me a little bit. Or, I missed my first, she took a few steps while I was gone doing a show. And I remember feeling like, I can't believe she did that while I was gone. Is she doing that to punish me? Is this because I'm working? And she's like, I'm gonna walk because mom's not here. So I've had to learn to let go a little bit of that and understand that I am there as much as I possibly can. And that has to be enough, because I can truly say I'm trying my very best to be there as much as I can. And the rest I have to just let go, because I don't think it's healthy to hang on to it.
Yeah, it really isn't. And yet it just, if you don't actively work to push that away, it just sneaks back in over and over. And so, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's just insane that it does, because you think you've got it. And then one night you'll just be laying in bed and you'll think, boy, did I mess up on that? Or, did I ignore my child? And one thing I have done, that I will say I actively continue to do, is I really try not to do social media with my kids around, only because I do feel guilt when I ignore them on my phone, because it's my personality. I cannot multitask very well. So my personality type is like, if I have my phone on, I will get lost in it. And then I don't know how much time went by, and I don't know where my kids are. And I had to learn that was a big struggle for me, learn to put down my technology when I'm with my kids, because I can very easily ignore them. And that was something I had to admit to myself, which I didn't want to admit to myself, but something that I had to go like, no, this is a weakness for you. You have to put it away when your kids are around, or you will not be engaged with them.
That's so good, though. I think that a lot of us think we're better at multitasking that than we are. And we think like, oh yeah, well, I can multitask. I'm here with my kids. They don't really need me right now. And so I'm going to go on my phone, but it just pulls us in. It just pulls us away. And so I think that's really amazing to recognize that and to set that boundary very clearly. I think that's super helpful. So okay, I want to ask you about, in the little time we have left, about your purpose. So you are doing all these big things. You are a mom, you're a wife, and you have this amazing career. Are you living your purpose, first of all? And then second, how do you know?
Oh, these are the hardest questions.
Yes.
They're so tough to answer, but okay, well, here I go. I'm going to try to express myself as well as I can here. I do feel like, well, I guess it really would depend on the day you're asking me, quite honestly. When I remember both times after I had babies, my hormones, the feelings of having a baby, your body being out of whack, I would go through, I didn't have postpartum depression, but I would have moments of feeling like, what am I doing with my life? Those long days with babies, or those long nights with babies, or feeling like you aren't working because you really can't. You just had a baby. And I've struggled in those moments to know, what am I doing? How am I doing? And feeling like I need to understand that so I don't feel like I want to run away. And I think in those moments, I've realized my purpose truly is to be a great mom and a great example. That's what I really want to be for them. And I hope I am fulfilling that purpose. I hope that I'm showing them you can be interested in a lot of things, you can accomplish a lot of things, but when it comes down to it, being home and spending time with my kids does feel like my most important purpose in my life. And I want my girls to know that, because I want them to find what they love and go after it and know that they're capable of anything, but also know that being a good person, being an example to other people is also extremely important. I don't know if that was a clear thought, but
yes, that was a beautiful thought, actually. I think that's so powerful. And I think that ties that all in really well to what a lot of us want. I think the danger can come in if you say, my only purpose is, being a comedian and doing this, and you guys, my family, are on the side. And to rather say, like, my purpose is to show you through living this amazing life what your life can be. And that's beautiful. That's so powerful. So I love the things that you've shared today. I think you're doing so much good in the world and being that example for your girls. You really are, of just showing them how to go for it. It's awesome. I would love to finish off with this. We ask all the guests this question. So from this conversation, what one little thing do you hope that people take away from it? What do you think they think about? What do you hope they think about differently, or that they do differently because of what they've heard today?
You might not be able to do all that you want to do all the time, but you can always have everything you need to be happy.
Yeah. And tell us how you would define that. Like, what is everything you need to be happy?
Someone to love you to love someone else, whether that is a romantic relationship, a husband or whatever, or whether that's just someone you love, you serve them, you help them, they help you, a friendship, some kind of community or commitment to something. I think if you have that in your life, and maybe that comes from religion or, like I said, family or friendship, I think that can give you what you need to have all the happiness.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do. It's so interesting because I've done a lot of really exciting things. I look back in my career and I really have, my husband always teases me. He's like, you always act like you haven't done anything, but you've done a lot of cool stuff. And when I look back, I think, like, boy, those are really cool things. But my happiest moments are like when I'm sitting on the floor at home with my kids or with my family or with whoever. Those are really, truly the great moments. So you might not be able to do everything you think you have to do, but you have the opportunity in your lifetime to create the happiness that will make you feel like you have it all.
Yes. Oh, I love it. That is so good. You guys, Jenna Kim Jones, go and check her out. Where is the best place to find you?
Oh, everywhere, all social media at Jenna Kim Jones. And if you want to check out our podcast, I really recommend you do. It's safe for all ages, meant for adults, but safe for anybody's ears. Very clean content, but it's all silly, fun, happy stuff. You should check it out. It's called Couple Friends. It's me and my husband, and it's a daily show, 10 to 15-minute episodes every single day, Monday through Friday. So check us out, couplefriendspodcast.com.
Awesome. All right, you guys, go and check that out. Thank you so much for being here, Jenna. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here.
Yes, and thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. Oh my gosh, you guys. Jenna Kim Jones. Is she not amazing? I love talking to her so much. Just so much fun. And my question for you guys is, what one little thing are you going to do differently or think differently because of what you have heard today? And I know what it is for me. My takeaway from this, I loved what she shared as her one little thing at the end. She talked about the happiest things are the little things. And it's so great. I mean, we talk about one little thing all the time, right? Do one little thing. And so what does that mean? It means you might not be a stand-up comedian on these TV shows and having this big career, but you can totally have all the happiest moments that anyone else can have. It's hugging your little ones. It's snuggling with your husband. It's connecting with a friend. It is connection. It's those little things. They absolutely matter. So go out, do what makes you happy, connect with someone, serve, love, do something about that today, and then tell us about it. That or whatever your takeaway was from today's episode, let me know on Facebook or Instagram at Moms Who Know Podcast, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.